What's up? This is Nick with Motorcycle.com, and today we just got done riding the 2025 Speed Triple 1200 RS. Now, this is an important motorcycle to the community of motorcyclists overall. Let's go back 31 years, and Triumph can actually, have the claim to fame to starting the sport naked motorcycle. They really started nude motorcycling, if you will. And the fact is, that's something that's near and dear to a lot of sport riders, because really you're getting superbike performance in something that's a lot more approachable. It's upright seating position combined with pretty much 95% of the average superbike gives you something that you can rail on the street and the racetrack. Now, Triumph brought us out to Portimão, and you guys will know this racetrack from World Superbike, MotoGP, so on and so forth, F1. Now, the 2025 model year, if you look at it on paper, it's just a handful of updates, but they've done something that's very crucial. They've teased out compliance, control, and extra electronic features to just heighten the riding experience. And something that the bike did need in certain ways, especially with riding compliance, or I should say ride quality, and other things of that nature. So, I'm here at Portimão. We hit the street, we hit the track. Yes, the weather didn't cooperate. Yes, we got a whole lot of rain, but the fact is it actually gave us a different type of test. Maybe one that's not so focused on pure performance, but how all these systems work. So let's get into this first ride review. Okay, first things first, what you guys want to talk about, naturally, of course, is the 1160 triple cylinder engine. It has all the song and dance and drama of the previous engine, but there are a few little tweaks and updates that I want to get into. We're getting a little bit more horsepower, 180.5 horsepower, and then 94.4 foot-pounds of torque claimed by Triumph. That comes to us because they've optimized the exhaust. As you guys can see, they have this little shorty exhaust system, as well as just an overall new exhaust system. They've also updated the fuel map, and interior-wise, this doesn't really affect the horsepower in any way, but they've tried to address smoothness by optimizing balancing strategies with the balancing shafts themselves, and then of course the crankshaft. And that really just comes to us via some different machining strategies that are way too nerdy for my pay grade. But overall, yes, the already smooth engine is even smoother and angry in certain ways. Not to the point where it scares you or anything like that. It has that good anger. It likes it a little bit rough. That said, you have torque pretty much everywhere. It's omnipresent, we'll say. You get on the gas at low RPM, and it can be a little bit deceptive just because it has good low-end shove pretty much everywhere. And then as you get into that upper rev range, it really just starts screaming, and you have what I would say is one of the, I don't want to use the best, but it is an incredible experience when you're really railing on this thing. Now, as I mentioned before, we did ride on the racetrack, we did ride on the street, but the racetrack was an area where we could really push this engine to its full potential, even though we were riding in the rain. Now, Triumph did throw on some World Superbike grades wet tires for us, and we made do. But the engine itself, the shifting, everything is just smooth. And how that power delivery comes in, especially in the wet, is an important thing, because although you get good low end and mid range, as it feeds in, it's not going to overwhelm you or necessarily just be unruly or anything like that. I think it really hits that leader class spot, and it doesn't take it to just absolute extremes, like maybe some of its competitors could arguably be doing. The big update here is going to be the Öhlins Smart EC 3.0 system, which debuted on the Honda CBR R1000 RR SP Fireblade. And now it's also on the Ducati Panigale V4 S and Streetfighter V4 S. So when we're talking about motorcycles where this is an upper echelon of motorcycle, but realistically this thing only costs $20K, some of the other aforementioned bikes are significantly more money. Now, if we think back to the 2021, 2022 Speed Triple 1200 RS, it had fully adjustable Öhlins suspension. The thing is, they damped it pretty heavily. So at the racetrack, it was actually a much more hardcore Speed Triple. You could push it with some serious serious stuff at a racetrack. But on the street, the compliance just wasn't there. It was just a little bit too cutthroat. Now, having semi-active suspension really fixes that, because you're just able to adjust things on the fly. And to, exemplify that, during our road ride and in between photo passes, you have maybe 30 seconds or so between riders, I was able to stop, make some setting changes, go and rip another little lap past the cameras, and you can see an appreciable change. So that's the advantage for me with semi-active suspension, is it just allows the average user to go in there, get their hands dirty, or sorry, not their hands dirty, because you're not using tools, but it gives you that ability to just change things on the fly. So you have 3 suspension modes: dynamic, normal, and comfort. And of course, it uses the objective tuning based interface. So if you want to fine tune things, you have stuff like, braking support, front and rear stiffness, et cetera. But new with the 3.0 system from Öhlins, they've also added initial acceleration support and cruise support. Again, we're just expanding our ability to adjust within that paradigm that Öhlins has created. And it's all set up specifically from each manufacturer. So whatever Honda's doing and is different from Ducati and Triumph and so on and so forth. Now, as a reminder, if you guys like old school stuff and you want to use the old school nomenclature, you can go and just go to the static rate modes essentially, or their manual modes, and change compression and rebound damping as you see fit. Preload is still adjustable manually, but talking about the suspension, it gave the bike the compliance that this thing really needs. Because if we're being honest, 99% of the buyers that buy this are going to be riding on the street. Like, yes, you should take it to a track day. You would be absolutely nuts not to. But the compliance that you get out of this and the handling, the enhancements that it's brought to the table are, I would say, bar none, that's my favorite aspect of this bike. So even on the wet, on wet tires, super confidence inspiring. No, my knee pucks were not ravaged as they usually might be at Portimão on a proper set of sport tires in the dry. And a lot of apexes were not harmed either, as the video can tell. But the fact is, you can really get into it and have a lot of fun. Now, one thing I do want to mention just about the ergonomics, very similar to last year in terms of the seat to peg ratio, things like that. They did widen the handlebars and then lift them up a hair. Now, the other big update for this bike is its electronics. They've made some serious advancements. It's always had IMU supported electronics. To that end, we've always had adjustable traction control, several ride modes. You have rain, road, sport, rider, which is the fully customizable one, and then track, multiple ride or ABS modes. But the new additions are in a couple very particular areas. You have adjustable engine braking, 3 levels. Now you also have adjustable wheelie control. It was never like that before. And it's actually a really clever system. They really prioritize that, which is, if we're honest, Portimão's a wheelie track, and it really stresses electronics overall. So all you have to do if you want a wheelie is pop it into gear, slam the throttle wide open, and it will just lift to the limit set on your 4 different values. You can straight up do a wheelie down the entire front straight with no skill necessary. If you can fog a mirror and twist the grip, you can wheelie a 180 horsepower motorcycle. It's that simple. Not overselling it, straight up, that's how it is. That said, I'm horrendous at wheelies overall, but that's what it is. Now, as we touched on the electronics, I want to bring up traction control. That was super crucial during this test. Multiple TC maps, you can go through those. Quite honestly, I was using road TC a lot of the time, even on the racetrack, and it's this blanket of security that can really make the difference between sending one down the road or not. Again, I was using road mode a lot of the time too, in serious heavy braking situations from these stylum calipers and the super sick MCS Brembo lever, which is span and ratio adjustable. Coming into turn 1, you're on the binders pretty hard, or say into turn 5. Got a little bit of ABS, but you can also go into the track ABS. It's just an excellent set of electronics that really, I think a lot of consumers are gonna dig. Now, some of the other changes here that we can talk about real quick, they have a little bit lighter wheels. It's just a few grams, things like that, but it's shaving that unsprung weight and helping this thing handle. So overall, am I pleased with the 2025 Triumph Speed Triple 1200 RS? Yeah, absolutely. Had a blast on this thing. I wish the weather had cooperated so we can really speak to that peak performance idea. But that said, we didn't, necessarily leave a lot on the table in certain aspects. I mean, we were still able to push on true wets and get a decent taste of what's going on. And moreover, test the traction control in a very extreme environment. Now, anyway, this is Nick with Motorcycle.com. If you have any questions about the 2025 Speed Triple 1200 RS, go ahead and drop them down below. We'll get you some answers. And as always, make sure you visit Motorcycle.com for all your facts, figures, prices, and much more. Now, I am in Portugal, and now that we're wrapping up this video, I gotta go get myself in the shower and get some pastel de natas. So that's it for me. Last thing I want to remind you guys, go ahead and be safe out there. Take care.